Buongiorno a tutti.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I see that some people are just joining us with young people as well. It's a great pleasure because what we're going to speak about has to do with the youth, the future, what innovation means, and how we can implement in the sector different logic than classic ones. A scenario has been outlined, figures, countries, consumption patterns, and we try and get into the daily life of people. And in order to do this, we propose a new dimension that you see here. And we conceived globalization for too long as uniform behaviors. We thought we would eat just like the Americans, the Asians would dress as we dress, and it's not so, because in this scenario we have various layers in this windrows, compass rose. You have differences. We do it as consumers, as researchers, but we try and give industry operators simple indications specifying how complex it is to think in terms of values. We've seen countries and cities in the north, south, east, west. For 3 years, we've been making this observation for Mido and Amphao. Continuity at the end allows us to understand change, and through this monitoring of 30 cities in 25 countries of the world, we can really understand deep differences in values. And from this perspective, values in the north are not the same as values in the south. We should try and understand it. If we observe Amsterdam, Tokyo, we should start from an assumption that such cities are different, have different features, also in terms of values. So first element has to do with values. Second element instead has to do with the extraordinary uniqueness of places. And here, and rightly so, we've spoken about the risk of globalization, that all cities and places would be the same and become similar. And today we've discovered there are specificities connected to territories and cities that we should get to know. There are also styles, a certain way, for example, of using sunglasses and eyeglasses, and it depends on genius, loci, specificity of cities and the place. And this can be seen with Valentina Ventrelli that shall accompany me in this presentation. First of all, values, then places, and third, trends. We've seen some general trends connected to some economic changes, to some structural changes in the field. But then we have to go into detail. We have to understand that there are virtues, blendings between places, generations, and we get to the last fourth scenario, generations, as we're supposed to speak about generation and innovation and where innovation stems from. This year we have thought of analyzing the theme of millennials. We all speak about millennials. We consider millennials to be people from 20 to 35 years of age, and today we shall say that in this course of time you have 4 types of generations, because 20-year-old young people are different than 30-year-old persons. They have a different approach to sunglasses, eyeglasses, and with Valentina we shall try and give you some hints. It's work in progress. It's an observatory that will last in the course of time. We shall organize other meetings when the results of research are achieved. Imagine 30 people working at the moment in 30 cities, collecting material, taking pictures. For us it's important, apart from figures, to also introduce real people, people with eyeglasses, sunglasses, their way of combining eyewear with their clothing items. We shall try and get into the real life of people of different generations. So, let's start with values, and from the north. When I say north, I mean north of Europe, Holland, Germany, but also Scandinavian countries and also Great Britain. In this socio-cultural dimension of the north, we might also consider Canada and other northern countries. There are some values that we should know, and for them, such values are a priori values. The concept of feeling safe when you live in such hostile environments, and also in Italy we shall experience a similar situation to what is experienced by people in such territories, and also eco-compatibility, because nature should be respected, and this concept is deeply felt in the north than in the south. And hence, as we said, feeling safe, then eco-compatibility, and the concept of basic, also from a philosophical perspective and design, this finished design that is completely organic, a vision of the world connected to nature and the forms of creativity. Processes are clear. It's some sort of cultural set. And apart from fashion trends, it will stay in such places. When we produce, when we create for such countries, we should understand you have different values. Imagine Mediterranean countries, Southern America, but also Africa, undoubtedly. In our territory, we attach so much attention to emotions. Everything is based on emotions and creativity and diversity. We live in a moderate climate where biodiversity is higher than in northern countries, and then the concept of memory. For example, a family in the south and in southern peoples plays a bigger role than in northern countries, and then senses. In warm countries, the body is not covered, and you can see parts of the body, and these are the cultural features and the values of such countries and of such territories. You should never forget about it. If you read global data, if you forget about such aspects, you don't fully understand what is happening. East. Everything is relative, but by East we mean Asian countries, the Far East. There are differences. Think about religions of such countries, Buddhism, Shintoism, and for them everything is animated, and for them everything is connected to a spiritual dimension, daily life. Think about how the Japanese live robotics. For them, a robot has its own soul, its spiritual dimension. Shintoism is connected to this spiritual dimension. Harmony, symmetry, aesthetics, but also the relationship between what is artificial and what is natural changes, and also a simple product, just like a pair of sunglasses, eyeglasses, falls within this different culture. And I say it to young people, traveling allows us to understand such differences. And then rituals. these are the most ritual peoples in the world. For them, repetition is not routine. We are creative. We continuously try to change, also in terms of consumption. For them, rituals are a key element. And in terms of marketing, but also in terms of business, this is a big opportunity if it is understood. It can be a problem instead if we think that for them the fashion cycle is just like our own fashion cycle. End to end, the West, it's easy in this case. Even if not everybody went to the States, we all know what the Far West is. We know the strength of this culture that aims at technology, because technology is performing, because the future for them is the opposite of rituals. And whatever means testing, whatever is connected to the interaction with technology and perhaps networking, a need to experiment new things. Why are all the US big players from the USA, Silicon Valley? Because for them, this idea of the frontier of experimenting is important. So these are the values, and it would be so nice to devote a whole day to each one of such values, because we're speaking about the diversity of the world. It's a basic element, though, to understand what we are interested in detail. It is connected to the cities that we have chosen in this edition of the Observatory to understand new trends in the field of eyewear, and I give the floor to Valentina Ventrelli that followed all the research, and she shall keep on doing so, and she shall tell you that these are just a few elements that will be strengthened in the course of time. Good morning, everybody. Yes, the big theme assigned to us by Mido is to work on innovation. That is to say, fundamental step from creativity, that is for sure essential to innovation. As Francesco said, we have started from faraway values, cultural values that are deeply rooted, values that, however, permeate the theme of innovation. For sure, there are series that you see here, series we are monitoring its work in progress, that is bearing first few results, but for sure it shall keep on giving us results. This year the theme was observing places from another perspective, not just in terms of people, their daily life, the style they produce, but especially to understand how innovation gets into your sector, innovation that can come from other sectors, aesthetics, but not only. So for sure, there are some cities that are extremely interesting, that we shall see today with bird's eye view. But we just wanted to set the emphasis on some elements in the big north, in the cities we are observing. We have chosen London. London historically has strong innovation features, but at the moment, as it is a delicate moment for the country, London is producing extremely interesting innovation signals. After Brexit, it's just as if the country had woken up. For years, London has kept on accepting youths coming from all over the world, from all over Europe, and design schools, fashion schools, architecture schools, have produced in the past few years great enthusiasm. But at the moment, there's a comeback of London, and London is going back to working on fundamentals. Its eclecticism that has increased in the course of time is still operating through irony, self-irony that is part of the genius loci that is so British. And it's a specific approach. It's the ability to reinterpret everything through irony. And the theme of exploration that is so dear to Great Britain through the filter of originality. Tailoring, yes, but trying to take opportunities. There are interesting cases of blending between classic English tailoring with the American style. And the big theme at the moment is represented by sustainability. Everybody speaks about it. It's a buzzword. Not Great Britain, but the City of London has really tested it and witnessed it through highly innovative projects in all the sectors, and it is strictly connected to pragmatism. And of all this, which repercussions do we have for the world of eyewear? So many of them, and in terms of accessories, fashion, but also in elements. Just like your sector, yes, it includes elements of fashion, elements of style, but it is fed with real innovation, and so London becomes an interesting place in one sense and the other. Further south, we've chosen Barcelona. Barcelona, in the past few years, experienced a period of stagnation, and now instead there's some sort of flourishing through vitality. It's highly contagious in new generations, but not only. We shall see how family itself is an element of great interest, especially because you have intergenerational bonds. This characterizes the South, all of the South, as Francesco said. But in the cycles we are monitoring in the Mediterranean, it is extremely relevant. Extremely young people are driving innovation, but within the family, and it's different than in the West. Oh, a jump in my slides. We shall see that design and emotion, aesthetics and emotion were one of the values in the South because we filter everything through senses and emotions, and Barcelona is a city that is producing and generating innovation, not so much through innovation but emotions. Aesthetics is always filtered by the emotional level, just like iconic imagination is an important element. And all the pictures we are showing you simply represent a value that is a deeper value. For example, these days they've spoken so much about shapes, roundish shapes, droplet shapes. However, iconic shapes, it's not that you have one form over another, but it's an iconic element. Icons are not just based on nostalgia. Interpretation makes a difference. The East, Beijing, one of the cities we are monitoring in the Far East. And narration is always ritual narration, and symbolism is different. And it's so strong. In such cultures, symbols are at the center of everything. Rituals are an important filter, and the theme of religion is always present in daily life. Daily life that can be connected to high innovation and discipline always filters the theme of innovation. And so it's not fantasy revolution, but discipline governs change. And the expression is so strong. There's a female Eastern world that has always worked on expressiveness, always with big harmony and balance. And such elements have always been part of this world. In the West, we've chosen San Francisco. We are monitoring Toronto. It's some sort of boundary city with the values of the North, and we do have to monitor Canada with great attention for the next few years. San Francisco. San Francisco is a city where radical individualism perhaps is the key word. And this type of West is different than classic New York West. More productive West. It is more connected to the theme of alternatives, where individualism is fundamental. Freedom is freedom of expression, but always very inclusive. A theme, a value that is coming to light in terms of innovation is inclusiveness, not just working on differences because it's politically correct. We know that the Americans do care about this definition, but today innovation has taken a leap forward. It's not just being politically correct, but it's the theme of inclusiveness as a value. So, classic freedom of the American dream is fed by this value. And also, the theme of standard is being expressed in style, and we shall see it.
Trends are many. We have talked about values, about cities, and we are experiencing trends, not only in your industry, as we said, but this will have a great impact on the way projects are developed and most especially on what people are looking for. Let's focus on one in particular, which is madly perfect. And this is a global trend par excellence, and that can be found in all industries and in all trends. And this is linked to the idea of repetition and of tailor-made approach. If you work in fashion, you know that this concept has been slightly abused and overused in the past years. So from everyday objects to products and even services, well, we have encountered the concept of tailor-made, bespoke, individualized too often, and these are words that inspire people to feel unique and to use a unique thing. Uniqueness is certainly key for many people today, and in a way or another, all sectors that have something to do with a project have worked on that. Let's think about services or even technology. Technology has nothing to do with fabrics, with textile, with materials, but it is in any case focusing on that. Today, however, we're not interested so much in craftsmanship or in handmade approach, although it is important, especially in Italy. but rather on manual abilities and manual capabilities that are being developed within the industry. And this is an extraordinary topic for your industry as well, because when you have that desire and that aspiration for something which is well made, and this has not only to do with handmade, but also with machines, thus maximizing through the industry what can be achieved in this respect. So we have a sort of creative thrust, the machine that simulates manual work, but in this case we have a distinctive factor, which is passion, which is a sort of mania, a sort of obsession, exaggeration of perfection, and this is in a sort linked to the Eastern world. Again, I'm not saying that this is a trend which is present only in the Eastern world or in Eastern cities, but this is something which is in any case linked to their approach to excellence, to repetition, to further develop things and make them even better. And this is something we can experience across many different sectors, fashion shows, industry, and well, key is really to go beyond traditional schemes and focusing on variations and changes, on uniqueness. We've seen a couple of pictures that are very interesting. These two people, for example, they are two Japanese, and they became famous because they've been married for 50 years, and their Instagram profile has lots of followers, and they always wear matching dresses every day, matching apparel every day, with a sort of mania, with a sort of obsession, as I said, which is extremely interesting. So they've become viral, so to say, because we've seen pictures of them everywhere across many different media. However, they fully represent that so-called Eastern approach. And this picture instead is a picture that we've had in our file for a long time. This is a picture from Tokyo. Apart from both personalities and apart from the social implications, well, this is a day-to-day picture, you know, two people walking on the streets of Tokyo. But there is a sort of dialogue between them, and that typical focus on details which characterizes this trend. All right, so what are the most interesting take-home messages? Well, we are going to focus on the four profiles that we have described so far. Well, we are summarizing a lot because we have been working on that for decades. However, let's try and identify some key take-home messages, very concrete ones, as we cannot speak about theoretical trends, so we have to be very practical. We have to identify the framework as identified by JFK in its survey, but then we have to translate theory into practice. So we have somehow to try and understand the key essence of people. Data provide us with a framework, but then we really have to go into the details of that framework and think how that product that we developed can become the real protagonist of every person's life. And this is the most fascinating aspect. Well, as you can see, this picture is containing a lot of words and a lot of concepts. Let's now focus on generational groups. Let's start from the north, and let's start from the younger generation, 20-25-year-olds. Very strong in the northern countries, not only in Scandinavia, but also in Canada. Well, Canada is a very interesting country, by the way. It's the best mixture between the best from the north and the best from the south. So great focus for civil rights. Canada, for example, is playing a very important role as an alternative to the United States, but it is also linked to exploration, to innovation, which is typical of the West. These creatives, young people aged 20, 25, very good at using social media, they want to become the protagonists of this new trends that Valentina has described to us. So it's not right to consider them as a target. It's not right to consider them as a target group linked to fashion or linked to technology. We also have a couple of them in Italy, not too many, but this is the so-called Erasmus generation with a very cosmopolitan approach, with an idea of technology which is really key. So digital is for them like the air they breathe. So technology has become part of their DNA. We use an expression in this respect, which is on life. They are constantly on life, so there's no difference between online and offline any longer for them. It is interesting to understand that if you want to capture that generational group now and in the future, you have to gather them, you have to engage them so that they become the creative protagonists of what you are proposing. Because they become the ambassadors of the brand. They are the influencers, they are the bloggers, they're very good at that, and they want to feel independent and autonomous from the viewpoint of the experience. I see many young people here in the room, and I guess they know what I'm talking about. These people are very dynamic also from the viewpoint of trends, of aesthetics. So for them, fashion trends do not make any sense. They want to express themselves in multiple ways without necessarily following a specific trend. And this is a group we have to monitor in the short term. If we move to the south, we find what Valentina mentioned. So older people aged 30, 35, and they are about to build their families. It's not important whether they have children or not yet, but they are building their future vision that includes a family. And clearly enough, the so-called functional pragmatism of eyewear is more important, that's clear, but they also focus on the look and feel, on the aesthetics. As you may well understand, it is very difficult to use maps and to use features because everything has to be interpreted in a flexible way without sticking to predefined rules. And if you want to really understand their consumption attitude, so you have to understand that these people are focusing on self-fulfillment, and this is not only work, although their job is important. They have important relationships, not only with their family members, but also with friends. Exclusivity is key, and by that I don't mean luxury, but excellence, so being able to do something better than others. But they also feel the need to be reassured. Both men and women, both fathers and mothers have many other things to think about. So functional elements, rational, pragmatic elements linked to eyewear are very important to them, although products must be an icon for them as well, and this is very relevant for the South. So if you analyze one specific market, you have to combine all these different elements linked to values, to targets, to trends and attitudes. It's very complicated but very fascinating as well. And we as Italians are very good at that because we can combine this information in a very creative way. Let's move now to the East. Well, in this case, we go into the world of fashion, of real fashion. We know that in Eastern countries such as Korea, China, Japan, it is very important to be part of a trend, to be part of an attitude, and this is what we experienced 20, 25 years ago. For them, this is now important, although harmony and spirituality are still very important. So And that's why for them hedonism is a daily gesture. Choosing that pair of glasses instead of another is part of also their vision and their view about creating their identity. We know that in the East, focus on detail is really important. Care is also important. These are service-oriented societies. So if we have a beautiful product, but we don't have services to follow them up through time, it's a waste of time. So it is necessary to combine all these elements. They are very deep. They analyze their experiences with the utmost attention. Taste means not only taste, but also experience. And for them, sophistication, fine sophistication is important. Search for detail and innovation, of course, is also important. In conclusion, let's conclude with the West, so with the United States or with the performance-oriented world. And this is a part of the millennials, the proactives are at the heart of the millennials generations, those who have been profiting from the today's business world, and they have understood that innovation has to be considered as a platform. There's a sort of capitalism of innovation. You may not have great sharing of collaboration, but there's a sharing of values that leads to this sort of capitalism, and these people aged 25, 30 are the protagonists of this approach. And this also applies to accessories in general and to eyewear more specifically. Key is technological competence. It's like digital for younger people. Technological innovation is a must in any product they have, otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. But they are also very local in their approach. If you go to San Francisco, if you go to the Silicon Valley or to New York, to the main Western cities, you will see that this local approach, this attention for local specificities is becoming increasingly important for them. We should not think that everything must be global. For them, local elements are likewise important, and that's why we are talking about the gentrification. The areas where they live are extremely expensive, and this creates a sort of natural selection for those who cannot afford to live there. So technological competence, experimentation, entrepreneurship, and local focus, as I said. So this type of scenario, this sort of landscape that we have described, combines the different aspects together. In conclusion, we would like to urge all of you to go back and study. So we have to go deeper into the details of what we do. Clearly enough, a small, medium-sized company is not able to do all this. You have to make a selection. So within this map, you have to find your position. You have to find your place within this map. You have to find the right place where you are stronger, where you have greater values, and fight for success. It's not easy, but it can be a very fascinating journey. We think that Mido and the community that participates in this experience has all the abilities to go on along this journey and reach success. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we will be more than happy to answer them.